I really like to collaborate with people who do something well that I maybe do pretty well, but it's their forte.
I'm a little boy with glasses, the one they call the geek. A little girl who never smiles, I've got braces on my teeth. And I know how it feels to cry myself to sleep. And I'm that kid on every playground who's always chosen last. I'm the one who's slower than the others in my class. You don't have to be my friend, but is it too much to ask? Don't laugh at me, don't call me names, don't get your pleasure from my pain. In God's eyes, we're all the same. Someday we'll all have perfect wings. Don't laugh at me. I'm the beggar on the corner. You've passed me on the street. I wouldn't be out here begging if I had enough to eat. Don't think I don't notice that our eyes never meet. I was born a little different. I do my dreaming from this chair. I pretend it doesn't hurt me when people point and stare. There's a simple way to show me just how much you care. Don't laugh at me, don't call me names, don't get your pleasure from my pain. In God's eyes, we're all the same. Someday we'll all have perfect wings. Don't laugh at me. I'm fat, I'm thin, I'm short, I'm tall, I'm deaf, I'm blind. Hey, aren't we all? Don't laugh at me, don't call me names, don't get your pleasure from my pain. In God's eyes, we're all the same. Someday we'll all have perfect wings. Don't laugh at me. Don't laugh at me.
Thanks for being here, Steve.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
So what do you like about collaborating? Because you're a wonderful solo songwriter. What does hooking up with someone else bring to your craft?
Well, I think it does a number of things. One, it broadens your horizons. So I really like to collaborate with people who do something well that I maybe do pretty well, but it's their forte. So the easiest ways to talk about that would be on a musical level. I love to collaborate with better guitar players than me. I'm a pretty good guitar player, but I'll write with people who have amazing grooves that they play in that I wouldn't play in, or time signatures, or things like that, where I can still apply my melodic skills, but they're providing a grid, if you will, that I would never come up with in a million years. And then lyrically, I really like to work with people who, again, have a talent that maybe I'm pretty good at, but not as good at them. So Alan Chamblin would be a good example in that we've written a ton of songs together. I'm really good at big picture ideas, like a chorus concept, here's what the song's about. And Alan is incredibly good at what I call the show me, don't tell me, paint pictures,
Right.
Details of verses. And the thing is, a good collaboration and team should be a learning experience. So over 20 years of writing with Alan and 97 songs now we've written together, I've become a lot better storyteller in terms of details, and he's become a lot better, person putting forth the big idea and or musically.
You still learn things today after all these years?
All the time.
How is it that there can be, after writing so many songs and so many songs in your head, how can you still come up with new ideas? I mean, it's a common question, but why is it that there are always new ideas for new songs?
Well, I think a couple of things. One, I believe that writing about your own life is a good place to start as a songwriter, but it's not a great place to stop. So if you only write about your own life, you end up writing 8 songs a year. Like, hopefully, things go along at an even keel sometimes, and you don't have anything, you seemingly have nothing to write about.
Well, you need to have some conflict, some tension, right? To help trigger it.
But there is that conflict and tension in the world at all times. So to me, Randy Newman once said that a great songwriter is the grand observer, that your ears open, eyes open, heart open. So you're always looking and listening and coming up with things from other people that you might put in first person, by the way, as if they happened to you.
Even though they didn't.
They didn't always happen to you. And I call it an emotional truth, like looking for, it's not about the facts, it's about an emotional truth. So a lot of times when people say to me, is that song true? I said, yeah.
Emotionally true.
But it's not like, don't give me the lie detector test for every last fact in it. That's part of my job as a writer, and I tend to collaborate with people who share that same willingness, if you will, to explore fiction as well as nonfiction.
It's kind of like in my business, newspaper columns. Everyone's good for about 4, and then you have to start thinking outside of your own box.
Well, but also you guys are like a little bit more tethered to telling the facts.
Sure.
We're not. See, that's the thing. Songwriters are not journalists.
Yeah.
So nobody is checking our story or doing it. You're supposed to make things up.
Oh, fiction writing is so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can really scope it out. Now with Alan, can you break down one of the songs that you guys did, perhaps? Who brought what to the tune?
Well, like we have this song called "Don't Laugh at Me," and his daughter, 7-year-old daughter, came home from school one day pretty upset because kids were teasing her and making fun of her for her freckles and red hair, and apparently she blurted out, I wasn't there, but she said, "Daddy, I just want to say to them, don't laugh at me, don't call me names." Yeah. And Alan is ever the grand observer too, and actually, as he likes to tell, he had his left hand around her shoulder. His right hand, he was writing everything she was saying.
See that coming.
So the next day, we were getting together in Nashville. I live in the Bay Area, but I go to Nashville probably 5-6 times a year, mainly to collaborate. And then he mentioned that title and the energy and emotion that she put forth in it. But I will say this, that led to a conversation that we'd never had, even though we were good buddies, about our own childhoods and dealing with bullying and teasing and all that kind of stuff. And one thing led to another, and then the song got written probably in the easiest fashion I've ever written a song, in the sense that it took maybe 3 hours to write that song with hardly any rewrites, and that's very rare for me.
Who came up with the tune?
In that case, it was me. Yeah. I tend to, with Alan, he's way more lyricist, so I tend to at least drive the musical bus, and he'll comment, like, try a different chord there, or what if we went up? Yeah. But he would never, like, say, what if you went a third above that? You know what I mean? Right. He knows what he likes when he hears it. But
so is it calibrated to the words he's thinking of? His words will fit a certain melody.
Yes and no. Like, for me, I'm really good at prosody, which is prosody. Yeah. So the marriage of music and lyrics. So, I mean, to use that example, don't laugh at me, don't call me names, has a certain, like, where you're saying, like, come on, give me a break. Like, don't laugh at me, don't call me names. there was a rocker woman in Canada who recorded that song. It was like, "Don't laugh at me, don't call," or "I'm gonna like beat you up," kind of deal. I mean, it was like it had a whole different energy.
That is a whole different energy.
You know, so I'm always looking for the energy that is the emotional underbelly of what the words are really trying to say.
It's a combined truth for what you're putting forth.
Yeah,
it seems. Yeah,
absolutely.
So when you were writing that song, were you sitting in chairs opposite each other, or were you hanging on a couch? What's your favorite kind of setting to do these
Usually
things?
at a table, just like this, but maybe there'd be a table in between us.
Guitars in your laps and
yep,
doing that.
Computers open. Used to, when we started writing together, Alan and I, 20-something years ago, it was always like a yellow legal pad and a pen or a pencil, you know. Now everybody gets their computer out and has programs where they enter this or that. And
you can delete and add quicker, huh?
True enough. Although it loses a little bit of that tactile, something cool about writing something down.
Yeah, does it trigger your head to be able to do, because I know some people who still write with a typewriter because they want to feel the clank in their fingers.
Sure.
Does it make you write differently when you're do you write a different kind of song when you're writing longhand?
Yes and no. I'll tell you the truth. For me, I'm a lazy secretary. So usually it's the other person that's doing the notating. I tend to like rely on a recording as we go along. So I'm constantly using my phone for voice memos. And every time I come up with something new, I'm just singing it. And that is going to suffice in terms of the notation till the end of the process, at which point I'll take the whole thing. And other people like to just write down as you go. You know?
Now, how about writing with someone who you haven't met before? How often do you get into that kind of situation where someone's written part of a song and then they hire you to come in and help finish the thing out?
Yeah, that happens every once in a while. More often than not, though, when I go to Nashville, I have a publisher. And so sometimes you're set up on a blind date, you know, with somebody that the publisher usually has some reason to think that you would work together well creatively. But more often than not on their side, it's more about an opportunistic business decision why the two of you should get together. I could care less about that if there's not a creative connection. But to give you an example, like if I write a song with a guy or a woman who writes for Warner Brothers Music, let's say, I have a much better chance of getting that song in a Warner Brothers movie than if I wrote it with you or with Alan. And it's just the way of the world. I always say to people, next time you go to the movies, don't just look at who wrote the songs at the end of the movie. Look at who publishes the songs. And there's always an incredibly high occurrence of Sony Pictures, Sony Music, DreamWorks.
Yes,
You know, all those movie companies have publishing companies, and they take care of the family. So if you co-write with one of those people, you know, if you're, as I am, writing for a smaller independent company, I get it. I get why they do that. And I don't mind it as long as there's still a creative connection.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't work for me.
See, because it's interesting, because you put a lot of heart into your writing. You write fully sellable songs, but there's always a little bit of extra heart in them.
I try.
You do. And how, when you're collaborating with someone else, how do you make sure that you keep them real instead of just commercial?
Well, I think that is a big part of, at least for me, how I choose who I'm going to write with.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they have to have some talent at writing, but to me it's somebody who has that same standard of trying to go a little deeper. I don't write too many songs that are just light, kind of fun escapism, which there's nothing wrong with. Yeah. But as a writer, I think you have to kind of know who you are and what you're mainly trying to do. So every once in a while, I've written with somebody where they just took me to the party, you know, kicking and screaming, and I wrote some really fun dance song.
Right.
That's really rare for me. So, like, one of the reasons I write with Alan so much is we're always very philosophical and going pretty deep. And I think you keep the heart in it by having both people aiming their arrow at the heart, if you will. Don't Laugh at Me is a song Alan and I wrote in 1999. And a guy named Mark Wills, who's a country singer in Nashville, recorded it.
Terrific version.
And he had a number one record, and that's always good. But a year later, Peter Palmieri recorded it, which was a big deal to me because I grew up listening to them. And, you know, if you think about the songs that they've recorded, when I went to see them in concert, it was pretty nice company to find yourself in with This Land Is Your Land, Blowing in the Wind, Puff the Magic Dragon, Leaving on a Jet Plane.
It fit right in the wheelhouse. Yeah.
So that was a big deal to me. And I think the most notable thing about that song is Peter Yarrow of Peter Palmieri turned the song into a character education curriculum for schools, like an anti-bullying campaign. And he started a foundation called Operation Respect. And so 15 years later, that song is in 35,000 schools via that program, 17 other countries. And I'm not bragging because I didn't really do that part, but we did provide the song for it. And it's kind of cool to see music used that way. And hopefully it's doing some good on the planet.
Oh, it's a terrific tool, terrific gift.
You know, I think music speaks to all of us, but especially kids. If you think about it, we learn our ABCs from a song all the way up through lots of other things. You know,
and this was a nice way to teach them this particular message.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us, Steve.
My pleasure.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
I'm moving to Mars. Yeah, I think I'd like to try me out a life in the stars. My friends all say I need a place to air out my heart. So I'm moving to Mars. You know, this life has been crazy. Sometimes I think I'm not really here. Every time I turn around